Welcome back to Potential to Be Okay. I'm Russell.
And I'm Matt.
And this week we return to the land of Misfit Sequels.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, first of all, how the hell are you, dude? It feels like it's been forever since we've done this now. It's quite the hiatus we were on.
We did take a little bit of a sabbatical, but we're back in action. We're talking movies, culture, religion, cults, apes,
nuclear war, telepathy. I mean, you name it. So that kind of hints to you guys that I remember when we first kind of thought about this idea many moons ago. This was one of the first movies you and I both brought up. We kind of wrote down a list of 5 to 10 movies right off the bat, and this was one of them. And now that we finally got to it, we can finally start talking about Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Exactly. That was one of the first things I was thinking, was that like when we kind of were coming up with the definition of what's a Misfit sequel, I feel like this was like the third or fourth movie we mentioned.
Yeah, and it certainly was. Before we watched this movie last week, it's probably been quite a few. I would say probably a little over 10 years for me since I had last watched this movie. So this was, I was wondering when we were diving into this movie last week, would I still feel the same way as I have about the original Planet of the Apes movies way back in the day. And so I guess we'll find out here shortly. But, starting off this movie, it's kind of, one of the things that kind of popped in my head this week, or even today even, is like we got pretty much almost identical the original cast back. You got Maurice Evans coming back as Dr. Zayas. You got Charlton Heston as Taylor. You got, I think it's Kim Novak who's playing.
Kim Hunter.
Oh, Kim Hunter, yeah, who's playing
Zira.
And you got Roddy McDowell who's playing Cornelius, and Linda Harrison who's playing Nova. So you got this is one of the, nowadays it's very common to see the returning cast of characters come back into sequels, but back then, it's kind of a stretch. Will they come back? I mean, Star Wars is pretty much, I would say, the first mainstream kind of movie that brought back returning characters for sequels and stuff. But this movie came out in 1970, and the returning cast is back.
Yeah, I think one thing, like, especially if you watch 1 and 2 back to back, it's jarring to me because it feels like they just shot everything all at the same time. Everything is completely seamless. As far as, the same actors come back. They're obviously using the same sets, the same design, same makeup. The apes look exactly alike, and they're all played by the same people. So it's weird to reflect that the first movie came out and it was totally a gamble. Nobody knew it would be a success.
Yeah.
And then it was, and they were like, well, let's try again. And so that's how we got part 2. But it feels like they made part 1 and 2 absolutely together.
Yeah, it certainly feels like it was shot in the same location. And, we had the same setups. We return to Ape City. We get the Forbidden Zone and everything like that. So it feels like it's the same setting for the most part. And, to say this, if you thought the first movie was dark and very, people's brains getting cut out and, the de-evolution of mankind, well, it's about to get a whole lot darker in this movie. Just when you think we hit, level 10 of darkness in the first movie, we made it to pretty much level 50 with this one.
Yeah, there's no silver lining if that's what you're looking for with this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, we got the returning cast of characters. We jump into the movie right away with Lucius. Lucius obviously doesn't really make an appearance in the movie, but we get his monologue at the beginning.
Who disappears.
Yeah, Lucius.
Yeah, Lucius doesn't come back.
Yeah, it was Zira's nephew.
Yeah. I don't go in for fads. I miss Lucius.
Well, I guess he took Charlton Heston's advice, and he never trusted somebody over 30.
Keep them flying.
So yeah, he pretty much, the movie opens up with kind of the opening scene being filmed, looking at the beach and the waves crashing in. You hear Lucius's kind of voiceover, the monologue of reading about the...
Beware the beast man. I love it. I love that so much. I'm happy.
Then he will kill his brother to take his life.
He will his brother and possess his life. I love that so much. I'm happy they started off with it.
Yeah. And it's pretty much the movie starts off with the last 5 minutes of the first movie, where Charlton Heston going, "You made it! You ruined it all!"
That's another thing. I forgot to write that down, but I was thinking it. These days, it's such a given that there's going to be a sequel to absolutely everything that we never get that opening recap anymore with modern sequels.
Mm-hmm.
This one, like, they're not certain that you actually went to see the other one, so they got to kind of cover their bases a little bit.
Yeah, I think Hollywood's kind of betting, especially with Marvel movies, DC movies, anything like that. We're betting, oh, no, you guys saw the first movie, so we're not going to do that. But, Star Wars didn't do that either, the original 3 either. They didn't
No, you're right.
do that at all. They kind of did with the text in the beginning, kind of like, it kind of foreshadows what happened in the in the previous film. So, but yeah, I'm with you that you don't really see that too often. This movie, I laughed really hard at this part because I'm like, of course, how many fucking astronauts do we have back in the past that are traveling through time? Because of course, after the monologue is over, we get a spaceship. Surprise, surprise, crashing out and crashing into the planet. This time not in the water, but on ground. And it flies out of the sky, and this time we only have 2. And we get introduced to our main character, Brent.
Brent, played by James Franciscus.
Yes, and we get to...
Who never really did a whole lot after.
I was about to ask you, did he ever... The question of the day that I'll probably ask you for every episode, what other movie did this actor play in?
I know nothing else of this guy.
I know nothing else either.
Kind of a shame.
Yeah, I know. I literally thought about it. I'm like... And I remember as a kid... The first time I watched this movie, I remember, I got confused at first for Brent being Taylor. Because they kind of have a similar look in some ways. But, Brent has the beard.
Yeah.
So at first when you watch it, you're like, okay, so they couldn't get Charlton Heston back. But, of course, when you see the opening credits, you see Heston's in. But you're thinking, oh, okay, maybe they're just crediting him with the previous footage that was shot.
So, I read a little detail, I don't know how much is true, but apparently Heston wasn't that excited about coming back for a sequel. So he wrote in his contract that I don't want to be the star of this movie, I'll shoot some parts, but you got to get somebody else to do all the heavy lifting. But considering that, Heston is still in 50% of it, so I don't know. I wonder if it was always the intention to bring in a new character and he just...
As much as I... understand what he's saying. Let's face it, he's the star of this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Again, even though he's only at 50%, the whole story focuses around him.
Yeah.
It's about Taylor in the end. And so as much as he wrote that in his contract, if that is true, well, it didn't work so well.
No, it seems like, maybe he just couldn't stay away from Ape City, man.
So poor James
It's a madhouse.
Yeah, it's a madhouse indeed. So poor James got the short end of the stick. He probably got a nice little payday, but he didn't get the fame.
You're correct. They kind of went out of their way to make him look as much like Heston as could be. I don't really know why.
Before we go on with this, we saw the trailer at the end of the movie. If you were back in 1970 and you saw the first movie and then you were watching TV and all of a sudden, or you saw another movie and you saw the trailer of this movie, would that have sold you to see this movie? Just basing it on the trailer.
Well, it's hard to be objective because every 70s movie trailer sells me on everything. They're just wonderful.
Yeah, 60s and 70s trailers.
They're so
awesome.
Cool. Yeah, and you get a lot of detail, too. Whatever happened to that?
Yeah, it's all gone.
I love all the detail, all the weird graphics, the voiceover.
Oh, me too.
The summer.
Yeah, me too.
All that shit.
I also thought, as we were watching the trailer, wow, they just showed about 75% of the movie.
Yeah.
Do you really need to see it now?
Major plot details, everything. It's a good question. Obviously, I'm too young, but... If you watch the first, and this is another case like Dirty Harry, where the first, everybody knows about Planet of the Apes, the classic, everybody knows all the lines, the images, but people don't even realize that they made these sequels, and that's why I think especially Part 2 is a misfit. But having got to the end of Planet of the Apes, there's not an obvious idea what you would do for a sequel. It wraps up all the themes, all the ideas.
Yeah.
It's not like nothing was left hanging, I guess is what I'm saying in the first one. So part of me, I don't know if I'd have been intrigued for a part 2 or if I would say, what the hell are they going to do? Are they just going to rehash? What could you possibly think of for a sequel?
Right.
And that's where we get into what they came up with.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm with you there. I think I would have been sold if I enjoyed the first movie, which I do. I also would have been questioning, okay, what the hell else are they going to do next? I wanted to get it because we have on our previous episodes we haven't really talked about the movie trailer that much, and I thought maybe we should jump into the movie trailer. First question, it is: does this movie have the potential to be okay? And the first, I think, test for a movie is the trailer.
You know, you got a good point
Yeah,
there.
with the okay, question for you here, and we'll try to be as non-biased as we can. Would this movie sell you if you've never seen the first Planet of the Apes movie?
Ooh, probably not. Again, maybe I'm being cynical, but I think a huge appeal why I love this movie so much is because the first one is such a stone cold classic. Like, there's nothing bad about Planet of the Apes,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, how can you follow up on a movie that's that perfect? And they really pulled it off. So
The best that they could, for
but
sure.
then if I knew nothing, if I had, it's like, would you go to The Empire Strikes Back?
I don't know.
You know, it's I don't know. I think you're.
Maybe because Star Wars was such a bigger deal, and then maybe suppose everybody's talking about it, and you never saw A New Hope, and all of a sudden Empire Strikes Back is coming out, and maybe that will pique your interest first of all, see it, and then let's say you kind of saw the previews for it, and I'm like, okay, I can see what it is. Because everybody, even people that don't know have never watched Star Wars, and they know the characters and stuff like that, I think that would have sold it. I mean, Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars movie of all of them. So
I don't disagree with that, but I just wonder if would you go to a movie without knowing what a Wookiee is and all that other.
I think it would be very hard for people to jump in. It's one of those things where you have to start from the beginning. And I think Planet of the Apes is another one too. Yeah. I don't think if I had never seen the first one, chances are I probably would not have seen this movie. I think it would have had to come on TV where you finally watch it. But getting back to our spaceship that fell out of the sky.
Ah, yes.
So obviously Brent is unhurt. He's kind of bringing out the stuff in the ship, and his captain, who's blind.
He's blind.
He's blind.
I'm glad you mentioned it. Blind? What happened?
How did that happen? How is he blind?
He obviously didn't used to be blind because Brent has to test him. He's got to wave his hand in front of his face. So something happened, and he never gets a name. They just call him Skipper.
Yeah, they just call him the Skipper.
Maybe that is his name, but anyway.
I also wrote Skipper right here too. Yeah. So yeah, he's just like, I don't know if it was an explosion. I don't know if
not enough of I don't know much about medicine, I suppose. But.
Yeah, I don't get it either. And what the hell? How is this man blind?
Anyway, poor bastard is blind, and he just gets left there anyway. So
and so they're doing their calculations, and so they are in the year, and I wrote this down too, 3955 AD.
Oh, okay. Thank God, because we've argued the shit out of what year it is in Planet of the Apes.
We got I do not remember the first, the year in the first movie, which was, I remember years ago when we watched it, the first movie, you and I were talking about it.
Well, it must be the same.
You think so?
Because if it's not, how do they find Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're right, but I mean, it's not a big deal, but I found that, I wrote that down, I'm like, oh, here we go again. But I did also write that, they did at some point, I can't remember if it was Brett talking to Skipper or something else, but they literally said 2,000 years ago, they were talking about history, and 2,000 years ago from 3955 is 1955. So,
which is 15 years before the movie was made.
Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't really matter because I guess I think they were probably just estimating.
Yeah, might be.
But I wrote that down.
That's really interesting because there really wasn't any space travel in 1955.
No, there really wasn't. Barely. Wow, can we live on that Earth? Because man, they seem well advanced for the most part.
Well, they did still have nukes though.
And obviously, I love every time we watch these science fiction movies back in the day. And obviously, I just find it really funny that, whether it's like a Twilight Zone episode, which I was watching that the other day, and I asked the same question. They look up at the sky, and obviously, if they see, multiple suns, one sun, multiple moons, one moon, they kind of have an idea of where they're at. And of course, there's one sun, and then the skipper says, "Which sun?" And I'm just like, "Which sun?"
It's a valid question.
It's a valid question, I guess, but I also, I also found it really funny. What did you think? So, we kind of previewed that this movie is going to be dark as fuck.
Yes.
The skipper's last words before he passes away was the realization that everyone he ever knew, everyone he ever loved, had long been dead, and then he dies.
Yeah.
Holy shit, what did you think about that?
It's a great moment for such a small character in the movie overall. And it's a nice kind of reversal of the first one, because if you remember, the great Charlton Heston in the original was completely cavalier about the fact that everybody was dead and gone and they'd never go home. And he was like, somewhere there's a bronze statue of you, and nobody can read the nameplate anymore. It's a little faded. It's just completely cynical attitude toward it. So it was cool to have this new character come in and have a different take on it. I like that.
Yeah, it was it was definitely something else, and wow, that's just
the darkest fuck.
You're right. The darkest fuck. What a way! Like that was his last kind of thought, his last moment. Like, oh my god, my family, my friends, everything I knew has been long dead for so many years, and then you just die. Thank you, Skipper. Exit stage left. That's it. So Brett kind of goes off traveling a little bit, and he runs into Nova. Nova's on the horse a little bit. She comes over to, kind of the desert. How lucky are these? Like, here's the other thing that always baffles me. How lucky are these people when you land in the desert away from Ape City and you land in the same spot in the entire planet?
Apparently the Forbidden Zone just attracts all the space debris.
Oh, it's great. So Nova, Brent's talking to Nova, trying to, get her to say something, and I wrote here, and I know it's not, we're trying to be realistic with movies, but I just want to get this out here. I'm like, I wrote here, Brent, it's 39:55. Do you think English language is going to be the same as it was in the 1970s?
I mean, I think it'll be relatively groovy, man. Don't you?
The shag carpet and everything. Why not?
I mean, it's totally retro.
Oh my god, I just found that hilarious.
The thing is, with every Apes movie, you just can't let that bother you. I mean, I know it's a major thing, but it's not the point.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the point. I just found it hilarious as always. I'm just like, okay, here we are, 2,000 years in the future, and people. Well, we'll get more into language barriers later because there's another note I wrote on here about the language barrier in this movie because I just cracked up on one scene. So he says Taylor's name to Nova, and of course she kind of has this PTSD moment of Taylor, and we kind of get flashbacks of them going into the Forbidden Zone. It's barren. There's nothing growing. There's nothing there. It's just a vast wasteland. And also we get these crazy giant firewalls.
Yeah.
And the weather control and earthquakes. What did you think of the special effects on this?
I mean, if you'd been there at the time and seen it on the big screen, it probably would have been pretty awesome.
I would agree. I would agree. And
I think they look pretty goofy, but I think what sells it is that they happen so unexpectedly. I think that's just a great
giant firewall in the middle of nothing.
Yeah.
And
this is, I'm going to come back to this theme, but I really like the fact that the giant firewall is a totally new thing in the series.
Yeah.
I mean, they did not just go back to the mine as far as Planet of the Apes. They didn't repeat anything from the first movie, really. They just came up with new ideas and threw them out there. And I really respect that, because a lot of sequels get lazy and just retread. And this, not even close.
Yeah, retread. You hear that, modern day Hollywood makers? We're in the era of rehashing for sure. So Taylor then just boop, goes through a wall.
Oh, yeah. Oh God, I love that. That's when he holds his rifle up in the air, and he kind of tilts forward, and then just disappears.
Yeah, he just hits the wall But the strange thing about that scene is he just stops and just looks at the wall like he notices something.
Well, perhaps he does.
He probably does. Maybe he heard something coming from there. I always found that scene strange. That he just stops and kind of looks at it. He tells Nova to stay, and he just vanishes. I wonder what attracted his attention.
Well, we learn later on there are some maybe telekinetic abilities going on. I guess I've always assumed that was it, that they were kind of targeting Taylor as opposed to Nova.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, they wanted Taylor.
I'd pick Nova, but that's just me.
I would have picked Nova too. I don't know. So Brett goes to Ape City, and Nova takes him to see Zira.
Yes, I wrote down this phrase just because I love it, the idea of it. I wrote down Gorilla Symposium. It's because God bless the sci-fi movies.
Oh man! So we get introduced to a new character. We get introduced to the general, the the Roman, the Julius Caesar, the Genghis Khan of the Apes
Yes,
here.
the Conqueror.
And what did you think of his beloved military style speech to?
Well, all I can say is, as we all know, the only good human is a bad human.
And raid!
And right! That in my notes. I just wrote that in caps. And right!
Yep, and I also wrote the only good human is a dead human.
Excellent,
So
excellent.
we're back to, and it feels like, military versus science now.
Yeah, and another thing that wasn't touched on in the first movie.
Yeah, quite a
Great idea.
Yeah, pretty much it was science kind of taking, I guess you could say, playing the role as the bad guy.
Yeah, in the first one, and I wrote this down too, Dr. Zaius is definitely the antagonist of the movie.
Yes.
Because he wants Taylor to be silenced, and he doesn't want the truth about the beast man to get out there, and so he's your enemy in the first movie.
Yeah.
And in this one, we find out there's something worse than Dr. Zaius, which is the military part of the ape society.
Yeah, and I find this society very interesting. In the first movie, we get introduced that pretty much science is kind of the government, the military, like it leads all of the the foundation of branches that would hold a society up. And then this one, we find out that there's several things, and it's pretty much, wow, what a coinky-dink. We're after 2,000 years, things are still the same, just a different species.
Yes, indeed.
Because we get introduced to the military, we get introduced to religion.
Sure.
We get introduced to activists. I mean, there's just like a lot of things happening here. I mean, it's just agricultural, obviously. It was probably the only other thing that we were introduced in the first movie was science.
Yeah, I think we were counting the jobs you can be if you're an ape.
That's exactly right. I wrote down in here, I take that back, 3 jobs. What would you like to do? What would you like to do?
Well, you can
and
be
then I wrote 4
scientist,
jobs.
Scientist, soldier, priest, presumably farmer.
Mm-hmm.
Guess that's about it.
I mean, I guess as an activist, it could be 5.
Well, that's not a job.
It's not a job. Maybe
Get a goddamn
maybe
job.
the military pays them to get a job, you ape.
There was, I mean, it's not that there was ever any subtlety to the Planet of the Apes or ever any intended, but I do love the heavy-handedness that we get when it comes to the round table, the Colosseum thing where the general's screaming that we need to go invade the Forbidden Zone, and the scientists and activists all shake their heads in shame, but everybody else is roused, and they're like, we're going to get our guns and we're going to go and kill them. And so they're going to invade the Forbidden Zone because they need their resources. They're running out of food, and so that's why they need to find out if there's anything sustaining the life forms in the Forbidden Zone, and that's why they're going to go invade. A not so subtle reference to certain things that were happening in America in 1970.
I was about to say that as well, because we also, it happens a little bit later in the movie when they do actually start to go out to the Forbidden Zone. The army does, and there's a lot of activists there, and I chuckled at that, saying, "Okay, Vietnam, gotcha."
You don't say.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's humans or eggs. There's people going to be protesting. The war is, what is it good for? Yeah, I mean, I've always wondered, now that we mention it, like, so in Ape City, they're kind of in like there's a lush forest. It seems like the climate can sustain for things to grow and all that, but at the same time, it's I'm sure if you took the entire planet and Planet of the Apes, you would find New York City and just desert. It's kind of like, it reminds me of Super Mario Brothers, where Bowser just rolls the globe and you see the city and then just endless desert all around the globe. I'm thinking that's what we could have for Planet of the Apes.
I don't know, because we do learn that they're in what used to be New York City, and so the Forbidden Zone is presumably New Jersey, I guess. We all know that anyway.
That's what it is.
Yeah, and beyond that, nothing is ever really established at all. So yeah, it would be really interesting to see what the rest of the planet supposedly was like.
Yeah, for sure. I also wrote in here, we get to see apes in a sauna.
Oh yeah.
What did you think of that?
That's so good. Yeah, because you would. Absolutely.
Yeah, I wonder how those guys in the costumes felt. Like, I wonder what that was like.
That's a great story to tell your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we get apes in a sauna, and so I guess the commentary is like supposed to be that's the only place a scientist and a soldier would ever meet socially or something.
In a sauna. Oh,
Great
my
scene.
goodness. So, they do find Cornelius and Zara, and they're kind of going back and forth about that. About what's going on, and just how they're agreeing about it, but Cornelius wants to handle it one way, Zara wants to handle it another way. Zara is very upfront, Cornelius is reserved, and we have to stay quiet about that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like as much as Charlton Heston apparently wanted to be minimally involved, it seems like Zira and Cornelius really are the ones that got the short end because they kind of disappear from the story after that.
I mean, they don't really serve much more. Which don't worry, they'll get their rebound in the third movie.
Yes. What third movie?
Spoiler alert, there's a third movie, and a fourth, and a fifth.
And a remake.
Yeah, oh God. And another remake, or a prequel, or whatever. So, and so they get into the building, or their house, and I just, it's the theme of mistaking Brent for Taylor. I think it's kind of the running joke, the hidden running joke of it, because obviously Nova appears first, and then, Brent comes out, and Zera's like, Taylor? My name's Brent. You can talk!
Yeah, Zira gets dumber somehow. Yeah.
She's just so surprised by it.
The joke is either that it was supposed to be Taylor all along in the script, so that's what they put in there, or that all humans look alike to apes. I can't decide which one is funnier.
So if you were writing this script, and let's say you wanted Taylor, what would you write if Taylor didn't get kidnapped, or not kidnapped, but lost in the Forbidden Zone?
I don't know, because the way they handled it is actually kind of the best thing, really.
Yeah.
So we know who Taylor is already. So having him mysteriously vanish is a pretty good motivator for everything else.
Would you keep everything the same, but instead Nova goes back to the city, and Zira and Cornelius go with Nova to find Taylor?
Well, I guess you could have done it that way. It wouldn't be so bad. But I'll bet you some producer said we can't have apes be the main characters. I'll bet you that discussion was had.
I'm sure. I'm
almost certain of it.
And it's funny how things would change later on in the third, fourth, and fifth movie.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
Well, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I get the feeling that somebody said, well, if Chuck's not going to come back, we have to get another human because the audience won't want to try and identify with the apes. And I'm trying to think like a Hollywood producer here.
I know. I'm just thinking like, well, how could you not, how could you not just be attached to these apes
I don't know, man.
Relate to them?
Don't know. They just wanted what was best for society.
They wanted Ben-Hur. That's what they wanted.
I mean, don't we all in the end?
Yeah, in the end we do. We do. So Cornelius brings out a map and he kind of shows them where to find Taylor, or where was the last place they saw him. They give him food, they give him medic, and then off they go. And they change him out of the clothes after Zira, berates Brent over and over. Change out of those clothes.
Yeah.
Change out of those clothes. I find that was kind of funny there, and Nova's just eating, just like the whole fruit basket.
Yeah, Nova's the unsung hero, really.
Mm-hmm.
God bless her.
God bless her. So they go, and of course they get caught. The horse is the victim, gets shot and killed. We have our second victim of this movie. First it was the skipper, now the horse. Thoughts on the horse's death?
Well, fine performance from the horse, obviously.
I wonder how they train the horses to do that.
That's another thing you never see anymore is stunt work on horseback.
Mm-hmm.
In the olden days, people used to flip over their horses or jump over them, or the horse would roll on their side and the guys would get thrown. It's very rare that you see that. Obviously there was like a whole industry of stuntmen trained around, probably cowboys, wranglers, all trained around how to get horses to do extraordinary feats of strength there.
For sure, and horse, you would have gotten the Academy Award for my vote. I mean, for sure, that was a fine performance. So they get caught by the apes, and now they're caged up, and we get introduced to an old building. The kind of the caging, the science laboratory where humans are, and Zara catches them, and she's trying to kind of say, "Oh, this is kind of a rare." Breed. We can breed them together. And I'm just like, okay, every guy wants to breed with Nova.
Yeah. Zera's attempts to get Nova laid are definitely worthy of our praise, I think.
I agree. Who could blame her?
This is twice in a row.
Mm-hmm. Who could blame her? And, the general's there, and he's like, no, target practice.
Oh, yes. Oh, God, I forgot about that. Yep.
Yeah, so we get, they kind of put him in this cage, and they get introduced to all of these. They see all the training exercises for the army, and you get to see more stunt doubles on horses, and humans. The apes are training to, kind of, they're using their whips, they're using the netting, they're using hand-to-hand combat. You kind of get introduced to their training exercises, and you really get introduced that maybe this city is more military than it is, towards science, towards farming.
Yeah, there was no hint of that in the first movie, but it's pretty clear now.
Yeah, it's really clear now. So if you were president of Ape City, would you say the majority of your budget would be going towards the military?
National defense?
Yes, national defense.
Probably. I mean, we got to keep out the Forbidden Zone and invaders. Bird! I was pleasantly reminded of that scene in From Russia with Love when they wander through that place where the guys are testing out flamethrowers and shit. It's great. Oh, great.
So this is another scene that I think is just great. Just by oh my god, really? But I guess when you're not surrounded by technology, it really helps. So they get into the cage and they're about to go off, and Zera's kind of checking them for, I don't know, just kind of saying they're good to go, and she's like, oh wait, didn't lock the door, let me get the other key.
The oldest
trick in the book, and she unlocks it, and the guy just sits on the carriage, and I'm looking around. Expecting, where are the rest of the people? They're in the military,
why would he suspect her? She's a scientist.
I suppose science doesn't lie, you're right.
Exactly.
You're right.
Science never has any underlying motivations.
Nope.
And we all know that.
Mm-hmm, yep. And I will also say that, man, Zara was really quick to kiss Brent.
Yeah, well, I mean...
You're the second human I've ever kissed.
You won't be the last either, Zera. What is it with this bitch?
She really loves those humans.
I guess.
She really just digs it. Poor Cornelius.
Was that in 1970 the nearest thing to an interracial kiss they could get away with, do you think?
That's a very good question. Yeah. I would say,
I just made it serious.
I mean, what was it? In the Heat of the Night? They came out in the late 60s.
That was before, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was still being experimented, because that's a really good point. I never actually thought about it that way. Maybe that was the closest they could get, or maybe... And then, maybe we're just completely overanalyzing it, and they're just...
Well, could be.
Yeah, could be.
It could be a situation where some guy in a suit and with a big cigar was like, yeah, you gotta get him to kiss again. I like that part.
Get the ape woman to kiss this gorgeous blonde-haired man.
But why would she do that?
Yeah. What's the motivation?
God damn it, it's my favorite part.
They've known each other for 5 minutes. And that's it. Oh, Jesus. So obviously we have this fight on top of the cage between Brent and, the carriage driver. What did you think of this scene?
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of our first action kind of scene here.
Yeah, it's another great stunt sequence. Unexpectedly in our social satire science fiction movie. Mm-hmm. It's cool to have that. Yeah, I love that when he climbs on top of the thing and he's got to fight the carriage driver, and it's kind of like we're watching a John Ford movie for a little bit. It's great.
And the old tree branch does the
He gets stuck in a tree branch.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought about Her Majesty's Secret Service. Bloodfield gets stuck.
Yeah. If you're ever gonna fight on top of anything, look out for tree branches. Haven't you ever seen a movie
or a cartoon? Yeah, come on. That should be your the two thoughts you should have if you're gonna do that. One, where are the edges at? Yeah. And two, are there any trees around?
Look out for tree branches.
Yeah.
The only way it could have been better is if an anvil fell on its head.
Or branches through a stick of dynamite. And
it said TNT.
Oh man, that's great. I love this case scene too. It's just great. And after they get him, they kind of drive up, and then we get to this next scene. This ape, I wrote aghast ape, just kind of like deep sighs, like. And then they go after the carriage. Like this group of apes. And like I'm just laughing so hard because you just see this random shot of just this ape going, and then they're off. They're off chasing the carriage. Like, what did you make of this?
I don't know. As much as they're excited to go off to war, it's like you can't be bothered to chase down a couple of renegades.
They're just like excited about it. They've been doing this for a long time. They're probably like, oh, God damn it, here we are again.
Zero, let him out of the cage again.
Like, how many times are we gonna have to do this fucking
thing? She probably made out with him too.
Yeah, probably. I'll take 50 to 1 that she did. You're on here.
Fucking scientists.
Yeah, do you think his brain's cut out? Did they forget to do that too?
Cut up his brain.
Cut up his brain! Oh, it's so, they escape from them and they crawl into this cave. And here's another funny part that they see. They looked at the cave and they're like, fuck it.
Yeah.
They can't just gave up.
Yeah. Well, it was important to the story. I love that they escaped down a little entrance into an underground tunnel.
Yeah,
and
they know they're in the cave.
The apes who were chasing them take one look at that tunnel, like, no, sir, not for me.
Yeah. Everybody knows that apes don't like caves. There might be bears in there or something. We hate bears.
Exactly.
How crazy is this? Here's another question I have. Everything that we see, the only other animal that we see in this universe are horses.
Apes and horses, that's correct.
Where is everything else?
It's too much. The apes ate them all, I guess.
Oh my god.
I guess here's a question. What do real apes eat? Are they vegetarian? I think they are.
I think they just eat fruit and bamboo. And
so they wouldn't... So if apes took over society, they wouldn't have livestock, probably. So I guess if
they had livestock, I think they would have sheep for wool, and maybe they.
Well, they have horses for use.
Horses for use, cows.
But they don't have anything to eat. They don't keep animals as
food stock. No, of course not. But maybe they'll use like sheep and cows for other things. But
would an ape drink a cow's milk? Now we're asking the real questions.
I don't know. I think. That's a good poll question we should do one day. Do apes drink...
If apes took over the planet, would they drink milk?
Would they drink milk from a cow? These are the important questions in life that we need answered. If you're a talking ape out there, please let us know. Do you drink cow milk? Please let us know. We're desperate.
I hope we get a response from Dr. Zayas.
Dr. Zayas.
Cows do not exist.
It is forbidden. Man killed the cow.
Beware the cows.
For their milk will poison you. For lust or greed.
I never thought about it, but yeah, it's just apes and horses.
Yeah, it's just apes and horses.
And slave humans. So
they don't eat the humans, they just...
No, they don't eat them, they just... What the hell do they do with them?
Target practice.
No, I guess so. And
now that I think about it, the scientists obviously want to study them for scientific purposes and breed them. And then obviously, they use them for target practice for... training for the military, but what else could they use them for?
They don't put them to work.
Yeah, they don't use them for labor at all.
No.
In fact, they're pretty much, literally, they're brain dead.
Well, yeah,
some are at least.
That's their view of them. It's like if you had a captive monkey, you wouldn't tell it to do your chores.
Yeah, and so
or would you?
Throughout history, man used men to build societies and conquer and, build civilizations. The apes are not doing that at all with humans. They have the slaves, but you're just using them for target practice.
So I guess they're not really keeping them as slaves. It's really strictly like lab rat kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess it's just kind of for scientific. They're mice exactly, and they're once they find the cheese, it's over. Their purpose is fulfilled, and they breed them onto the next one. And like, here's another thing: like,
once you find the cheese, folks, it's over.
Obviously, they're breeding humans. Do you notice you never saw any children in the first 2 movies?
I didn't ever think about that.
Yeah, there's no children.
I suppose they didn't. Couldn't get any child actors interested.
And like, if they took out the human's brains, would they still reproduce? They still had that instinct to reproduce.
I mean, personally, I don't think so. But I'm not.
But not all of them are, so I would think like they'd be just fucking.
No, they operated on Landon in the first one, but it seems like most of the humans just kind of wander around innocently. They didn't operate on everybody. They didn't cut out everybody's brain.
No, they didn't. They didn't.
Just Landon.
Yeah, poor Landon.
And then Dodge got stuffed in the museum.
Not good.
Can we pause and say how dark that is?
Yeah, that is dark.
I mean, in a mainstream like sci-fi movie that you're probably going to take your kids to.
Yeah, and he gets shot again. Remember when Taylor was running through the museum? Dodge gets shot in the back of the neck again.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he gets stuffed. Yeah, you're right. He gets stuffed in the museum.
That is depressing.
That is depressing, and now he's just there.
These movies are not comforting.
No, they're
starting to realize that.
Hey, welcome to thanks for all your space travel. You get stuffed, your brain gets taken out, and you're just gonna go to the forbidden zone.
Well, and even Taylor gets shot in the throat.
Mm-hmm.
It's fucking brutal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not for the faint of heart.
Don't want to live on this planet of apes.
No. Listen, Doctor.
I'm gonna stick with people.
Stick with people. Cornelius, Zara, Dr. Zayas, if you could tell us what do you guys use the humans for slaves in Ape City, please let us know.
Oh yeah, right in.
Yeah, write in to us, please. We really want to know, what do you use the humans for? If you're not building cities, if you're not...
And what do you eat?
Yeah, what do you eat? And do you also drink cow milk? We got a lot of questions we want answered. Please help us. Help us understand your society. I get it. We're damn dirty humans. I get it. We're the man beast, but can we at least know some questions, please?
I'm sure in the ape religion, that's probably one of the things that shows that
the lawgiver.
The lawgiver. That's probably one of the things that shows that humans are depraved and evil is that we drink cow's milk. I'll bet that's in there. Bet that's in one of the scrolls, the ancient scrolls of the lawgiver.
Oh man! And man beast drinks cow milk.
He will drink from the teat of the cow,
and then he will possess great strength to murder his brother, but lust and greed and land.
Excellent source of calcium
and woman. Well, so they're going to the cave here after our philosophical and existential debate on Ape City here. We get into the cave. And lo and behold, Brad, congratulations. You have now discovered, you are the second human that has now discovered that you're home all the time.
New York City.
New York City. That's
looks the same as ever, really.
Yeah, it looks. It's underground in a cave, and we get the railroads, the subway station. We get the telephone. I also wrote down Queensboro Plaza. And of course, he echoes a similar line. Did we finally really do it? And then I wrote below that, do what?
Blow it up, you maniacs.
I just had it right that I wrote down, do what with an arrow pointing down. I'm like, do what?
Yeah. I like the Queensboro Plaza thing because I've never heard of it.
I've never heard of it either.
I'm sure if you're from New York, you know where that is.
New Yorkers, what the hell is Queensboro Plaza? Help us.
Yeah. I don't know. I like that instead of being the Statue of Liberty, which everybody recognizes, they went with something a little bit more localized. Kind of a cool idea.
What do you think about New York City kind of like going subterranean?
I think so.
Going underground. Yeah.
It's when you think about it, like archaeologically, it's cool that on the surface of the Earth there's basically nothing left. But if you go beneath the planet of the apes, you find that some of like the artifacts of the city it used to be are still there, still readable, and you can read the telephone above the box.
Yep.
Stuff like that.
And we are beneath. So we.
Indeed.
How awesome is that? What did you think of that? You know, we get a literal meaning.
Yeah.
In the title, we're actually beneath.
I like it because I don't think any other sequel ever used that in the title. So, God bless.
God bless indeed. So they hear a hum. After they fall asleep, and Brent kind of goes out of the cave, and the apes are still around. They're kind of like, oh, should we go in? Are we gonna fight, man? What are you gonna do, man? I'm bored.
Yeah, they do the classic like '70s sci-fi noise. I love that where it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. What the hell is that sound?
So they go off and do that. So they go. I wrote down humming ladder.
Yeah.
The humming ladder, that's pretty nice.
That's something you won't understand without context.
Mm-hmm. So they go up the ladder and they go through this tunnel, and the humming sound is still going through like this white tunnel. And they get out of the tunnel, and lo and behold, we find the New York Public Library and Radio City Music Hall. Your thoughts on that?
Is that where Queensboro Plaza is?
New Yorkers, help us out on that.
Right to the show.
Please help us.
I love that. Yeah, visually
there's a bus there
the lion
too.
Statues.
Yeah,
I love that. That's cool.
There's a bus there. Everything's decaying.
And then for some reason, there's also a fountain. I guess just those are the public works that are still.
Yeah, I actually wrote this down. So the fountain is located on East 51st Street at a cathedral.
Oh, okay.
Yep, I wrote down the street and everything. East 51st Street at the cathedral. And the fountain, he tastes the water at first, he spits it out because it tastes like piss probably, and bat guano. No bats in this cave, by the way. Where the hell are the bats at? You would have thought this would have been the perfect hideout for Batman.
There aren't any bats anymore. It's just apes and horses.
Apes and horses. We've established that this would have been a perfect thing for Batman just to live there. I mean, Gotham City is pretty much New York City, so
Batman meets the Planet of the Apes.
Oh, I sold you on it.
That'd be a pretty good crossover.
Bruce Wayne.
That would probably be the best thing since Batman and Scooby-Doo.
Oh man, that would have been great. I haven't seen that in forever.
God bless. I used to have that when I was a kid.
Oh god, I used to watch it all the time on Cartoon Network.
Yeah, my favorite thing was the ghost that would show up and go.
Oh man, so the fountain kind of just magically turns on.
Yeah, I question that, although I guess we get a kind of an explanation.
We do, so Brett's just like, huh. So he kind of tastes the water a little bit, he's like, oh my god, it's fresh! So he drinks it, and then Nova's drinking it, and then all of a sudden Brett kind of goes stir crazy. Something's kind of controlling him, and he starts to drown Nova in the fountain.
Yeah, we get the other typical sci-fi noise where it's the... And then he starts trying to drown her.
Yep, and he's drowning her, and he's got this intense face, his veins are popping out of his head, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking kill her.
What long-suffering Nova.
Yeah, and he's kind of mumbling something out loud, like, I will drown her in the water, or something. Or just like, holy shit, dude. Do you really have to say it out loud? There's people, sleeping.
It's not the weirdest thing to ever happen in New York City, I'm sure.
Probably not. So he kind of stops, he kind of breaks free. Nova's trying to catch her breath, and he's just saying, get away from me, and he goes into the cathedral.
She doesn't even smack him or anything.
No, she's just so shocked.
She's just so understanding.
Yeah. And he just kind of stumbles into the cathedral, and then we get introduced to another human.
Oh, I get it now. Okay, I didn't put that together. So he goes in the cathedral, and that's where they are?
Yes.
Okay, wow, symbolism.
Mm-hmm, right?
You're ahead of me here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And he goes into the cathedral, he kind of stumbles in there, he's kind of trying to get his bearings, he turns around, and he hears a voice, and there's the man talking, he's praying, he's kind of stunned, oh my god, there's another human, and then of course, he notices Brett, and he's like, how much did you hear? And then, he's escorted by 2 guards, and then we get another pan scene of these group of people kind of watching kind of like a virtual television or something.
Oh, yeah. It's like a projection.
Yeah, projection or something, and, he's walking in, and they're kind of discussing, so he kind of goes in, and there's a group of 5 of them. I believe 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, I think there's 5 total.
5 total there, and so...
We never learn their names, or the name of their group, or anything.
Yeah, we really don't, so he gets in there, and it's like, where am I? And you just hear another classic 70s sci-fi song. Beep.
God, yeah, it does have all of them.
Yeah.
My God, yeah, I love that. He just nods his head at him.
Yep. My name's Brent. So we get the impression that they can talk telepathically to them, that humans have now evolved telepathically. So 2,000 years, God damn it, we made progress. We can talk without moving our lips.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank God. We finally made it.
I love that it comes a little bit later, but I love when he's like, I can't understand you, you're all talking at once, and they're not talking, they're doing it telepathically.
Oh, okay, we did this. So, okay, I was...
yes, he's too primitive to understand her.
Yeah, so I wrote that down. So let's talk about that. God, that's probably my favorite scene in the whole movie. We get, another typical 70s sci-fi on the synthesizers on, like, and Bill's like, stop it, I can't understand you! He's shaking his head, his hands are like against his head, like, stop it, he's like, and just get shot after shot after shot after shot. It's just like, it's very congested and it's very claustrophobic. It does a wonderful job just kind of making you go insane. Just like, what the fuck's going on? I love the scene. What did you think?
I mean, if I may, when all the Apes movies used to get played on AMC when I was a kid, the two clips that they would use to advertise were Brent outside the city going, "It's a city of apes," and the other was him going, "Get out of my head," which was awesome. I like that line, "Get out of my head." That's cool.
And so, of course, as you mentioned, he's right. We should talk. He only has, I wrote, limited intelligence.
Oh, is that it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Limited intelligence to understand it. So, obviously, they can talk.
They can talk, but they prefer to just beep.
Beep. And as we get the introduction of this cult, this group, whatever you want to call them right now, they only verbally talk for God. So apparently, as humans have evolved telepathically, their religious stoicism is still relevant for their...
Some things never change. Man.
Yeah, some things never change. I guess that's the bottom line of it. Just their gods have changed, but obviously the belief, the faith hasn't. So we can only do so much. And they called them, they're talking a little bit, Brett and the group are talking back and forth about kind of an introduction, and they call it I think it was the woman that called when they were explaining, when he was drowning Nova and they were making him do stuff, she called it a dramatic hypnosis.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, dramatic hypnosis. And, they're trying to get...
it can help you quit smoking, but they'll also make you drown people.
We'll help you quit smoking, we'll drown people, we'll let you kill people for us, whatever, whatever we want. So they're trying to get information from Brent because they realize he escaped from the city of apes, and he's like, I don't know anything. Oh my God! Talk about it's like the emergency broadcast system.
Yeah.
He's just driving him nuts. The woman in there, they bring Nova in. The two guards bring him in.
That's right. Yeah, they bring him Nova. They make him strangle her again.
Yeah, in a very strange way. But I'm trying to remember what the woman was trying to say. Bert's pleading with them. He's like, she can't talk. She doesn't know anything. And
what are the apes planning? That's what it is.
And she said, yeah, eventually that's what the bottom line is. But she said something to Brett like, "You're going to do it for us."
Oh yeah, sure.
Just I don't know, please don't harm her. He's like, we're not going to. Oh yeah, that's what it was. He's like, we're not going to harm her. You're going to do it for us.
Yes.
And then you understand the power because. And here's the strange thing.
Mind control.
Mind control. He kisses her to the point where he strangles her.
Yeah.
He bites her and kisses her
There's
so intensely.
Weird sexual undertones to this whole series.
Yeah, it's just crazy. And she
again, the guy with the cigar was probably like, "Well, he's choking her. I think you should kiss her."
They just gets the kiss. I want you to kiss her. You kiss Linda so hard that she falls to her knees and she can't breathe. I want you to do. Can we get that scene in there? I can see it now. There, give me that cigar cover, please. Thank you. You're gonna make this happen, right? I want my apes kissing humans, and I want Harrison taking the fall and getting kissed so hard that every man pays an extra $1 for this movie. I know, I'm with you.
That was the 70s, baby.
Oh, man, I'm with you. That's probably what it was, because every time I watch that scene, I'm just like, holy shit. Like, who sits there and comes up with the idea, like, I'm just going to kiss her so hard it's almost going to kill her?
I don't know.
Oh, so
not something Rod Serling would have ever thought of, I know that.
Oh, God, he probably wouldn't have. So Brett finally tells them, like, they're going to invade the city, and they're all like, and then, obviously, we go back to the apes. They're leading the army, and, of course, you got the activists, like, telling them not to go to war, and so they go out into the Forbidden Zone eventually later on, and they come across the firewall, but there's a different thing about the firewall this time. We have apes upside down on crosses being crucified and burning.
And with blood dripping down.
And then we get the lawgiver statue where, Dr. Zayas like, apes!
The lawgiver breeds!
And the apes are just going crazy. And they're jumping up and down. What did you think of this? Like, what was it, PG-13?
Well, it was 1970, so there was no PG-13. It was probably PG.
What did you think the parents did back then when they brought their kids to see this movie? Do you think they freaked out? You and I, if we would have walked in as teenagers, probably like, dude, this fucking shit's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome, man.
Nothing like this came out when I was a kid.
Yeah, we were like, dude, this is fucking metal. But we would have said, man, this is rocking.
I don't know, because what were the parents like back then? I don't know. Either it was like shield your eyes and leave the theater and demand your money back.
I mean, it's probably the same parent. I mean, these parents are probably the same people that probably show their kids Valley of the Dolls, so it probably would have been fine.
Parents were awesome back then.
Parents were great. Oh, you saw Lolita? Okay, let's go see the Planet of the Apes now.
Lolita. Yeah, today, kids, we're going to see Lolita, Valley of the Dolls.
Oh, I mean, dude, Valley of the Dolls is on my movie
Might
list.
as well take him to Deep Throat.
I just got another idea for a movie selection later on.
Oh, don't say it.
Oh, we'll tell you about it off the air.
Well,
just got another idea. God damn, yes.
I think you can read between the lines.
I think so. So I fucking love this scene. I'm just like, this is intense. And even then, like, I think it still lives up to today. It certainly is an eye attraction.
Oh, like, yeah. I mean, I love it because it's totally rock and roll with the upside down crosses and the flames and the blood and the destruction of religious icons and whatever. It's like, yeah, it's what I'm here for. If I'm a teenager in the 70s, I'm like, woo! But it's also great because it's totally different from the first movie. Mm-hmm. It's great sequel material because all this is new.
It really is. It's absolutely great, and Dr. Zayas just jumps through the flames, and he's just like, "We are God's chosen one." I'm just like thinking to myself, "Oh my God, Here we are again. No, things don't change after all."
That's why he's the doctor. Oh, I wrote that down. I didn't come back to it. Dr. Zayas, not so evil.
I was going to ask you a question similar to that, so let's hold off to the end about that. But you and I are on the same page about something here, but we'll dive into that later. He jumps through the flames, and the statue looks like it's about to fall, and then the visions, the illusions, as the cult or the group of the humans have said that told the Brett they were all just illusions, and so just before the general's about to call off the invasion, he tells them to march forward. They march forward, and then we go back to the group of people, and they're kind of discussing what they need to do next. It's kind of going back and forth about what are we going to do here? And here's my thing here about this group of people. So they're beyond their involvement and their evolution is beyond anything that we have achieved here. Right now, in some aspects, and they don't know what to do. They're kind of baffled, with themselves and how are they going to prevent the invasion here.
I really like the idea that they've evolved to the point where they have this amazing mental power, but what they don't have is any physical power.
No.
Whereas the apes are just primitive, brutal,
all physical.
They're animal-like, and so if it came down to it, they would win in a fight. The humans only have this, ability to use illusion. I think that's a really cool theme for a sci-fi movie.
I think so too. And here's another thing I wrote down. So obviously they're talking while they're looking at the invasion, but did you notice they were talking moving their lips?
No, I didn't.
It defeats the purpose of what they told Brett. We only really talk for our God and for obviously the primitive things, but they're by themselves and they're talking moving their lips.
Would you have preferred that they go beep and that there was a subtitle that says the apes are coming?
I would have found that a little more comical and a little more entertaining for sure. I would have just, they could have done is they could have just looked at each other and the look in their face was a concerning look and that would have told you everything. They didn't need to verbally say that, but I understand why they did it. The continuity is not consistent. But, that's something very, very minor. But I thought that was pretty hilarious.
It never registered with me.
Oh, it registered with me right away. I'm just like, so, like, they only verbally talk for their God. And, obviously they talked to Brett because he couldn't handle it.
Right.
But then they were by themselves and they were just talking amongst us and using their lips. I'm like, what the fuck? You have telepathy. You don't need to do that.
Maybe they just do it for fun. Maybe they like
it. Oh, what? They're bored with their new powers?
Sure. I mean, you can't brain talk all the time. You got to mouth talk once in a while.
Oh, I get it. So we get the scene where Brett and Nova are the guests of honor inside the church, the cathedral, where they're.
Oh, my favorite line is coming up, so don't let me forget.
Oh, don't worry, I won't let you forget. Did you notice the upside down crosses on the doors of the cathedral?
Of course.
Oh, wasn't that awesome?
One more little thing to upset the moral guardians of the day.
Mm-hmm. And what did you think of the chorus music? The church chorus music.
I mean, I hate it, but it's perfect for the moment. Whoever wrote that music was obviously a genius. But whoever lived in the house with him while he was composing probably killed themselves.
Oh man, I hope that guy sold records and just recordings. I hope every church in the 70s just played that.
Probably. Oh yeah, the new age guys.
Yeah,
probably listen to that upside down keyboard music.
I now must reveal my inmost self unto my God. Unto my God. And so then they revealed that their faces are actually masks.
That's right.
And we get the big reveal that they're I don't know, mutants.
Yes. So, who are they hiding their actual faces from?
I don't know.
It's only them down there.
It's only them down there.
Most of the time.
Who the hell are they hiding it from?
They all know they have.
I'm guessing they view it as a religious,
it's a holy thing.
It's a holy thing where because they say it. I reveal myself, my inmost self, unto my God.
Okay.
So only to their God do they reveal their innermost self.
I mean,
that's why.
That's consistent.
That's consistent, but that's a good question too. Because I thought about that too. I'm like, who the hell is going to see them like this? But it's a religious ritual for them. They only their God gets to see their innermost self. Which I guess there has that symbolic, in there.
I get it. Yeah, all right.
And so we get introduced to not only the mutants, but to their God. And lo and behold, it is a warhead, a bomb. What did you think of this? I mean, we get to see it, obviously, when Brett, kind of stumbles into the cathedral a little bit. You kind of see a little bit of it, but now you really understand, my God, it's a warhead. Yeah,
it's a nuclear warhead. And again, I just want to emphasize the complete lack of subtlety when it comes to getting the message across in these movies. So they're a future society, and we worship the bomb. They worship the atomic bomb because it has the ultimate power on the planet Earth.
It is,
which is not only disturbing and relevant, and probably even more relevant when the movie came out. It's like Yes, maybe that is where society is heading. Let's not kid ourselves, you know?
Yeah, very true. I mean,
People worship destruction. They always have.
Yeah, and it's still relevant to today. I mean, we have more nuclear warheads produced that are more powerful than ever.
Yeah.
I think I read once where Russia has the most powerful atomic bomb, and they say it's about 40 million times more powerful than the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And that pretty much destroyed big sections of both those cities.
Yeah.
So that's just, it's crazy that we're still advancing and evolving atomic warheads, and they are pretty much kind of the gods of today.
They certainly do have the ultimate power in the world.
The ultimate power.
They have the last say, if you like.
It is kind of like,
Alpha and Omega.
The harbinger of death, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right? What's the god of it? So, no, it's still, it plays, it's perfect.
I mean, if you want to say, we finally really did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we did. We have a way to destroy the planet now.
Yeah. Congrats to us.
Yeah, congrats to us. So we kind of get so I think this is the first time, I mean, it's always assumed in the first movie, and we kind of get the assumption in the beginning that, but now we really know that how did society end for humans? The atomic war. Atomic war ended it.
That's not stated in the first movie, but I don't think there's any other way to really interpret it at that point.
You know what I always thought as a kid, and I never really put it together, I always thought just so many years have advanced and so many things have changed that things have kind of switched. I didn't really thought it was an atomic war. I thought things just decayed and just changed, and, lands changed. We obviously know the Statue of Liberty is now, like, it's no longer standing on the island on its own. It's on the sandy beach.
Yeah.
So things have kind of shifted, territories and the ocean and the land has kind of shifted and changed and evolved. That's what I always thought as a kid. I never really thought about the atomic war. But we kind of get a more sense that it kind of changed the way things are now.
Yeah, I guess you're completely on the nose with that. I always went for the interpretation that there was some kind of global thing that wiped everybody out.
Yeah. I find it interesting also that...
Maybe just because every sci-fi series has that at some point.
I suppose so, but here's the other thing that puzzles me a little bit about this. So these guys have, obviously I'm sure we have to make the assumption that the atomic war happened in the 70s, probably. 2,000 years have passed. Okay. How are these, do you think evolution played a part where they have no skin, they have no hair? Is the underground, still covered in radiation? Is that what it is? I mean, there's just so much that I'm still questioning about. Because think about this, they don't have any skin, they don't have any hair, that's just who they are. I'm just wondering a little bit. I'm sure that's kind of how the evolution process happened. The survivors of the war, and they kind of I don't know. That's just how they look now.
I guess I got the idea that it's kind of like when they talk about the end of Doctor Strangelove, about how humanity is going to go under the ground because the doomsday bomb is going to go off. I think that's what these people are. They went underground. They adapted to that life where they don't need to be able to see sunlight because it'll never, be a part of their lives. So now they just have this membrane, and you can see all their inner organs and their inmost cells.
I mean, it makes sense that evolution probably played a part in this for what they look like now, because obviously as humans we're losing more hair, as generations have gone by. So I guess that makes sense. I wrote that down. I'm like, evolved into this now, and I guess that makes perfect sense. When you live in a subterranean underground for 2,000 years, you're obviously going to look a little different. For the skin to kind of look to the point where it's pink.
Yeah, they've turned in. They have the thing that deep sea fish have, where they don't need any outer skin. You can just see their organs and everything.
Yeah, it's very interesting, for sure. So it's kind of I don't know why I wrote this down. I wrote down the holy fallouts.
Because that's awesome.
Yeah, I just wrote it.
Yeah.
I'm just like, all right, but I'm thinking about what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, they really follow through with the theme of they not only worship the bomb, but they have all that terminology that the fallout is now the holy fallout. Mm-hmm. It's that's totally what their society would become if you think about it.
Yeah. So Brett gets separated with Nova, and they're leading them back, and they're kind of leading them back to this jail cell, and lo and behold, we get to meet.
And this is when my favorite line happens.
Go ahead, say it.
When Brent says, When may we hope to be released? And his captor says, you may hope whenever you wish.
That is a good line. That's
They
right.
just put him in a jail cell.
Mm-hmm.
With the great Mr. Charlton Heston.
Yes. And so they're talking a little bit, and of course Brent's telling them how they to Taylor about what's happened, and they look over at the other guy, and the guy, they're talking for a little bit, and it's like kind of I wrote psychological war, and here's one of my favorite lines: we don't kill our enemies, we get our enemies to kill each other. And so they kind of slowly back away, like, oh shit, and then of course, they mind fuck them, and they're fighting in the cage, and dude, we've seen so many movies where we've seen some good fight scenes. This one's fucking intense.
Yeah, it is brutal. I was throughout it. I was kind of reminded of stuff like Thunderdome and The Running Man, and realizing that this was like 20 years before all that.
Yeah.
So I guess it kind of inspired in a weird way this new generation of sci-fi action movies.
Yeah, it's really intense. We get Brett gets slammed into the wall. A chunk of the wall comes up. There's spikes on the instead of iron bars, there's spike bars, and of course the guy throws in the club spike, which is an awesome weapon. Dude, here's one thing that I wrote down where I'm just like, holy shit, Charlton Heston kicked the shit out of Brett. Like, there's this one scene where they're fighting, and he just kicks him right in the face.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, fuck. That was some good choreography, some good sound editing.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe it was real, and if it was real, holy shit,
Yeah,
he's not dead.
This is another thing about 70s movies, along with all the horse stunts, the fact that the hand-to-hand stuff, if you watch a fight scene in an old movie, it's like, I don't know, it feels tactile and brutal, and they really are kicking the shit out of each other, because, it's not stylized or anything, it's just presented totally violent, human, combat there. It's almost hard to look at.
For sure. I mean, and Brett and James, or Brett, he's just bleeding profusely out of his back, and it's just a brutal, brutal fight scene.
Yeah.
Like you don't see it in today's movies like that.
I think the thing is that there's not this sense of style in movies from this period. It's just we totally focus. There's no quick cuts. There's nothing to make anybody look cool. It's just focused on the violence. No looking away. No fancy camera moves. And I think that's what makes it feel more like you're seeing it in real time and it's really happening. Yeah,
it's a very closed area, very small. You're only focused on Taylor and Brett fighting. The other guy's closing his eyes, just focusing on his, trying for his enemies to kill each other, and it's just like a cage fight basically.
Yeah.
So we get Nova, and Nova's being carried around by the other guard, and she just bites him and runs off, and you never see that guard again. He's just kind of I got bit, shit. Well, oh wow. That's it. She sees the fight scene, she heard the fight, so she runs off, and she sees him. So they're fighting, she's like, Taylor! She actually speaks. She actually speaks. And so that distracts the guy, and I guess there was enough time for Taylor and Brett to come to their senses to grab the guy. Taylor hits him with the spike club and closes the spike door on him. And he slams into the cage. Well, what a hell of a good death scene, don't you think?
That's so cool. I love that. Yeah, so their jail cell wall is you can see through the cracks, but the bars have 2-foot spikes hanging off of them, including the door. So they put the guy in the door and open it, and he gets smashed in between the spikes and impaled to death.
And Nova's stuck in there with him, and the door closes, and they're too late to grab the door. I love that scene. They're still locked in the cage.
Because they're focused on everything else, they still get locked in there. But I do want to have a moment of silence for Nova with her famous last words, if you like.
Yeah. Taylor. And of course, the guy who gets crushed, he takes off his mask. He says, "I must reveal my innermost self unto my God." That was his last words. Yeah, Nova gets shot. About a couple minutes later, they do escape from the cage, and the apes obviously come through the city, and they're shooting. And they found all these marble statues of the replicas of their of the mutant selves, and they're destroying them. They're destroying everything. Heresy! It's heresy! Dr. Zaius is going through his most violent rage that he's ever gone through, probably just destroying things with his rifle. And so Nova gets shot, obviously, by the ape. They kill the ape, but unfortunately it's too late. And, Taylor is just holding her, and there's a kill every last damn one of them, he says. And Brett's just come on, we gotta go. We gotta stop them from detonating the bomb. When you first saw this movie, did you ever see that coming? Did you ever think Nova was gonna get killed?
No, that's a genuine shock, I think.
Yeah, for me too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, especially when she just got to have a great moment as a character. When we learned that there is hope for humanity because she can learn to speak. Therefore, she can learn. She can be taught. She can progress as a living thing, as a human being. And then she dies. It's just beyond cynicism. It's just like, yeah.
Well, here's your
really rubbing it in the audience's face, like.
There's hope for humanity, Psych.
Yeah, it's just, oh man, I don't know how else you could have done it, but that's another thing that's brutal. It's like your moment of feeling something for that character, and all with one word, one little action. She learns how to speak, which is what earlier Taylor was showing her the name tag. I'm Taylor, you're Nova.
Taylor.
God, that's good. It's such a punch in the gut. She just gets fucking killed right after it, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So they just leave her there and they go off and they try to stop the mutants from detonating the bomb, and they're concerned that the apes won't know what to do with it. As Taylor liked to call it, the doom. Probably my favorite line in the movie, the Doomsday Bomb. A nice little present from the 20th century. I love that line.
Yeah.
So the apes go in and they find the purple guy. The purple.
That's right. He appears to be the leader, I guess.
And before we jump into that, obviously they're shooting everybody. They're holding them hostage, and they find the blonde-haired woman. She committed suicide. She's laying in the bathtub, and the apes are kind of going in. But the one ape kind of looks at her hair like, "What the hell?" It's kind of like a weird moment there for one of the apes. Like, I've never seen this before. This kind of hair, because there was that scene where there was the one ape soldier who was kind of looking at her hair, kind of playing with it a little bit.
Yeah, I never thought about this before, but all the humans all have dark hair.
Mm-hmm.
So for him to see her blonde hair would be like he would want to know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty cool moment
for sure. So they get into the church, and there's kind of like the talk, the dialogue between the last mutant standing, pretty much, and the apes, and there's a whole bunch of apes in there, and so he reveals the bomb goes up, and he talks about it's his god, and then the general just shoots him. And he's like, that's what I think of your god. And so they're going to pull the bomb down, but Dr. Zaius is the only sane ape probably. He's like, no, we don't know what it is, you can't just do it like that, where it's kind of the old Waking Life quote where the military is all action but no theory, and Dr. Zaius is all theory but no action.
Yeah. I'd almost forgotten about that when they throw ropes around the bomb and they're going to, like, cart it off or something.
Yeah, they wanted to bring it down, and of course when they brought it down, the steam goes up. Brett and Taylor are up in the higher point of the cathedral, kind of looking under, below them, just kind of like, oh my God, what are we going to do? We're outnumbered. They're going to detonate the bomb, and so they're looking at the control panels, which it was like these crystals. It kind of reminds me of, the Fortress of Solitude.
I thought you'd say that.
For that, so the general's about to press it, so Brett, hits the piano, the organ.
That's right.
To distract the apes. Dr. Zaius is like, look, there's a helmet up there, and it's Taylor, and the general shoots Taylor. So he just falls, and you're just like, oh, fuck. And it looks fatal. What did you think about this the first time you saw it, when you saw Taylor being shot?
Taylor takes such abuse between these two movies. That's another. I didn't expect Nova to go. I didn't expect Taylor to go either.
Yeah.
Here's your beloved character.
So, when you're watching this for the first time, were you thinking to yourself, how are these two going to get out of this one?
Well, yeah, they're the heroes. I figured,
Mm-hmm.
what's our triumph moment going to be?
Yeah. Yeah,
no reason to think otherwise.
So you're thinking, like, just, and this is the first time I thought about this movie, too. Like, how the hell are these guys going to get out of it? Is there a way? So Brett shoots the general and kills him. So that was kind of anticlimactic for him. He just gets shot and just gets blown away. And he's shooting all the apes. He's just going back and forth, and you're thinking to yourself, is Brett really going to mow down all these apes? Because he's doing a good job so far. And then all of a sudden you get a scene where there's like 20 of them all random. They all shoot him at once. And he's dead. Now what?
I mean, it's my first time watching it. At that point, I gave up having any expectation what would happen next. Yeah, everything's totally out of left field.
Yeah, you're literally like, what the hell? Brett gets shot in the head. He gets shot, but of course you get a scene where Taylor's kind of like bleeding. He's talking to Dr. Zaius, and Brett gets shot 60 million times. Well, welcome back to Earth. Join the rest of the crew now. Mm. So he gets just shot like in the head, like everywhere. Just brutal, and of course
he's a goner. We should say.
He's gone, and obviously he's talking to Dr. Zaius, and of course Dr. Zaius is being old Dr. Zaius again, just saying, man has brought nothing to the table. He only brings destruction. And of course Taylor says, you bloody bastard. After getting refused help, and he dies, he falls, but his hand falls on the ignition crystal, as you would call it, and the bomb goes off. What did you think of the last line of this movie? The narrator kind of just saying,
"It's
like an insignificant planet is now dead," or something like that.
Yeah, something about like a insignificant blue planet orbiting a tiny star is now obliterated, or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's just short and sweet, and we get like a whiteout of the screen just before the credits, and that's when he said that. Suddenly there's a narrator says his thing about how the Earth is wiped out forever. Yep. And
then the credits roll and there's no music and that's it.
That's it.
So what would you like?
That's the biggest, I think, in all of movie history. That's the biggest lead weight ever dropped on the audience.
Yeah, that's it. There's nothing. You just sat there and you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
That's how it ends. What did you think of the ending, dude?
I honestly love it. I love the shit out of this ending to this movie. Mm-hmm. Because, you have to follow Planet of the Apes. The all-time classic sci-fi movie where at the end we find out that they finally really did it. They blew it up and, the Earth was obliterated by mankind's hubris and foolishness and our love of destruction or whatever. And so this is the sequel to that. How are we going to expand on that theme? And what they decided to go with was that ultimately there's just no hope for the human race because we'll either become the subterranean bomb-worshipping cult fanatics who want to blow us all up, or we regress to being the invading ape army who just is primitive fools who want to knock everything over and claim it for themselves. And so there's only one thing left, and that's for Charlton Heston to push the button and blow us all up. That's our only destiny.
It is.
So yeah, is it dark? Is it cruel? Is it a little mean to the audience?
Yeah. Do you think Taylor did it on purpose? Do you think he kind of realized that in order for this all to end, the planet has to just...
I think it was always my interpretation that it's his gesture of defiance to, what he sees the world has become, that he would want to just end it all. Because from the moment we meet him, even in the first movie, he's such a cynic about everything already. I think that totally follows through with how his character has always been described. So yeah, I think he did it deliberately.
Interesting. So, how about we dive into its reception, kind of the production, what is going on with this movie, how did this movie came to be, and what is its legacy on this. So, I have something for you. Soon after Planet of the Apes, was kind of the hit, they tried contacting our good old buddy Rod Serling from The Twilight Zone to kind of write some ideas for the sequel, but I guess the producers were not really that interested in his ideas. So then they turned back to the author of the Planet of the Apes book.
Oh, Pierre Boulle?
Pierre Boulle, yep. And I guess he wrote a draft called Planet of the Men. and I guess Taylor was going to lead an uprising of the enslaved humans to fight the general.
I never even thought about that.
Yeah, but I guess it was rejected, and they said it just lacked shock and surprise. They got a hold of other kind of people's ideas. How can we shock the audience? When I guess the atomic bombings of 1945, what we talked about, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, played an integral part of that. So I guess nuclear warfare did play a role into kind of making this script happen. What do you think about that idea about Taylor possibly leading an uprising of enslaved humans to fight the general for the sequel here?
Well, here's the thing. I even now it shocks me that they doubled down on the bleak tone of the ending for the sequel, because I feel like any sane Hollywood producer would have said, well, in the second one it needs to be upbeat. We need to have Taylor somehow triumph and somehow come out on top because he's our hero. He needs to save the day and either beat the evil apes or somehow make peace or whatever. It's I don't know, for a major Hollywood production, for a sequel to a huge hit, it still kind of blows my mind that it ends with the whole world getting blown up and everyone dies, because I just can't picture anybody having the guts to make that movie. And yet it happened.
Yeah,
it would have surprised me much less if it was like Part 2, Taylor leads the way and liberates the humans. I'd expect that. What I didn't expect is what we actually got.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess the other idea that they had, or one of the elements thought of, was a half human, half ape child to be introduced in this movie. But I guess because of the implication of what they say is bestiality, they did not want to go through with that.
God, there's enough kissing already. God.
I guess even in the 70s, that's still not enough. So I guess they went into the direction of, the modern world as we know of today is underground. And so, I don't know, like, what else were you going to do with this sequel here? What else can you do with this?
I don't know. What I wrote down as being like, when I recommend this movie to people who don't even realize it exists, the biggest thing for me is that they gave us a different scenario and world and characters, and it's not just about apes anymore. There's actually different things introduced into the story. And my biggest complaint is when we get to escape from the planet of the apes and conquest and battle for the planet of the apes and this of the apes, that of the apes. It's always focused on the apes. Apes, apes, apes. Apes are what get people in the movie theater. Apes sell tickets. And I like that for once in this whole series they were brave enough to try a different thing. So I just think that's cool. I mean, apes are involved, but I like the subterranean humanoid wackos with their bomb worship. It's just cool, man. It's different. It's throwing more ideas at the wall, and I respect it for that.
I respect it too. By the way, did you also know who they asked to play the general?
Oh God, give me a clue.
Let me see. I don't want to make it too obvious, but I'll name. We saw him in a movie recently that we watched a couple weeks ago. He made a cameo appearance. Think of the Muppet movie.
Oh, James Coburn?
No.
Mel Brooks?
No.
Orson Welles?
Orson Welles.
Oh my God! That would have been so cool.
I know, right?
Oh man, was he just too bored, or what the hell?
I guess I don't know. I read that they wanted Orson Welles. I think everybody wanted Orson Welles.
Yeah, probably, but still. Oh God, picture Orson Welles with a gorilla mask on.
Holy Christ. Can you imagine if it was like invade? I mean, he would have been Citizen Kane all over again. Oh boy. Well, I guess the reception during the time of its release was not great at all. Some gave it 2 out. I know, right? Shocker, right? Siskel gave it 2 out of 4 stars when he was working for the Chicago Tribune.
That fucking guy.
Well, he's dead now, so what more? What difference does it make?
I don't know.
I mean, he said it was just more action, but not much humor to it, and he thought it was not really wise for the sequel to give it much of a moral message. Kevin Thompson of the Los Angeles Times called it striking an imaginative picture, and he said it was pretty good overall. So there were some that did like this movie overall. That's what I'll say about this movie. The action really picks up a little. It certainly seems heightened during this.
Compared to the original, there are way more action scenes.
It's very heightened up. Although, like, the more I think about the original one, I mean, maybe they're both the same. They're both on par with action. But it certainly seems like this one has just a lot more. And I think there's just, you got the apes invading the mutant city. You got the atomic war. I mean, you got a new character who's just getting introduced to Ape City. He's running away from the apes. I mean, it's just a lot to handle.
Yeah, we talked about the cage fight and the fight on top of the moving carriage. I mean, those are some good stuff.
Yeah, and I guess the average, according to viewers that watch this movie, they don't really view this movie as high regard either.
Well, what the hell do they know?
I think, I don't know, like, it's one of those movies where I think it's just really well done. I think if you really enjoy the first movie, this is a great way to pick it back up and leave it on a note. I think this is where they should have left it, period.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So
I don't want to get too emotional about it, but...
Yeah, maybe people just didn't want the message, the moral message about atomic warfare. Maybe they're just sick of hearing that message. Who the fuck knows?
I think it's probably a big part of it, because as much as there's a lot of moralizing in the original movie, let's not forget that. Yeah. I think it was...
And on top of that, this movie's pretty quick. It's
it is pretty short,
like an hour and 35 minutes or something like that. Yeah, it is a short movie. It is nothing too lengthy. So it's a short, quick watch for the most part. Okay, so you had asked me earlier about Dr. Zaius being as bad as he is. And I thought about this question a couple days ago. So I'm going to ask you this, and this will answer, maybe this will kind of heighten your question about Dr. Zaius. Is there really a good guy in this movie in general?
Well, Nova.
Nova, okay.
Come on.
All right, you got me there. But if you took Dr. Zaius, if you took the General, if you took Taylor, if you took Brett, if you took Zero and Cornelius, is there really a good guy in this movie? They're all after something. They're all after their own selfish ambitions in some ways. It doesn't make them bad, but it doesn't necessarily make them the hero or the good person either. I mean, is there really a good person? They're both reflections of each other, really.
I totally agree with that. I think they're making a real point about no matter who you might side with in this case, it's wrong. I like to think of Taylor as being the hero, but he's also such an asshole.
he is an asshole. And he just if he just wanted to, as he said in the movie, just start a little village, a colony with Nova, and just live happily and start over again and live his life. And that doesn't happen, which is kind of sad for the most part. Yeah, I mean, I think that act of defiance where Taylor kind of realizes this is the only way. It may not be the best way, but it's the only way where he hits the crystal trigger, the trigger crystal, and that's it.
I think while he may not be a classic hero, Taylor definitely represents how the audience is feeling, especially when it's 1970 and all that's happening at that time.
Yeah.
And that attitude that, there's one way out, and that's to destroy the human race because we're just rotten at this point.
Yeah, there's really, we've done too much. We can't do it anymore.
But before I forget, I want to mention that it's a really fascinating turn, because at this point in history, we've seen Charlton Heston as Moses, as Ben-Hur, as Michelangelo, as Andrew Jackson, all of these completely morally righteous characters who are either chosen by God himself or just have this unfailing sense of right and wrong, and an all-American character to them. And to come around and do Planet of the Apes, where this character he plays is so deeply jaded and cynical, it probably shocked people in the theater.
Taylor is a very unique character.
Yeah,
he really is. There's really no other way to kind of describe how he is. He's kind of I don't want to call him a maverick, but he kind of is in some ways. He's got his own points, his own kind of way to do things. It's my way to the highway type of thing. I mean, it's amazing. He was an astronaut.
Yeah, it's kind of is considering.
You know what also blows my mind, that these guys are men of science. Astronauts are,
right,
and yet they don't use science to their advantage at some point.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm just kind of blown. Like, it just hit me. I'm like, they didn't. But I mean, limited resources, I understand. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. Like, I don't know what else to say about Taylor. He's just kind of like, I don't want to call him the everyman either. Like there are times.
No, because he's not quite that either.
He's not quite that either. I mean, he's a piece of shit. But you can also relate to him in a lot of ways too. He's very hard-headed.
Yeah.
He can be emotional at times, and he's all action but no theory. He's just go, go, go.
Yeah, I guess it's just the fact that he's somebody with basically no regard for humanity at all to begin with, even before he gets to the ape world.
I think you said it best, that he's cynical.
Yeah.
He's a very cynical man. Not to flip the topic too much here, but what did you think about Brent overall?
Well, Brent's not as awesome as Taylor.
Well, that's the obvious one.
I'm trying to say it as softly as possible. I didn't find his character very captivating in nearly the same way Heston was.
If it was up to you, if they gave you this script, and you read it over again, would you have had Brent in this script?
I think I probably would have said, "What's the point of Brent?" Just give me Taylor. It's Taylor or nothing.
Yeah, you could have had a different actor playing Taylor. I don't know why they didn't explore that option.
I'm curious about that too. There must have been some kind of contractual reason.
I'm sure they would have had Heston. I think Heston was selling. I think Heston was the name that would sell the movie.
It might have been too big a risk because he was the movie star of the time and he was in the original. And you can't ask an audience to go see Planet of the Apes 2 starring, some unknown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's certainly interesting. Yeah, but after watched it the last time, that was the first time I ever questioned, like, what's his point? Like, what was his whole point to begin with? He just shows up, he gets nobody, goes underground, he gets to the underground city, and he dies.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
You definitely could have had it without Brent, but I know they were limited by Heston's demands. So I guess they just did the best they could.
I heard he was only filming for about 8 days, I think, on this film. I think so.
Well, God bless him. What was he busy doing?
Yeah, Brett's kind of useless in this movie, now that I think about it. I mean, he's got his moments. I
don't think James Franciscus did a bad job playing the part.
No, not at all.
It's just that they didn't invest the same kind of personality that they did with Taylor.
Mm-hmm. So, overall, do you think this movie was okay?
Definitely, yeah.
Definitely, okay. Was there anything you didn't like about this movie?
I think the weaknesses are the fact that Brent is now our replacement Taylor for some of the movie, even though the real Taylor's also still here. That's kind of like, what are we doing here? And the fact that Cornelius and Zira kind of just vanish and they don't get to play a part. I miss them. And Julius is completely gone. He could have at least been one of the protesters.
You mean Lucius?
Whatever, yeah.
Lucius, Julius, Confucius, gotcha.
I'm sorry, Lucius. You went away and I forgot your name.
he had his 5 minutes of fame, that was it.
I know you don't go in for fads, but... So there was a little bit of lack of consistency there as far as the characters.
I don't think the villain was really defined in this movie. I mean,
well, that's because the villain is us, Matt.
I think the villain was everybody, from the mutants to Taylor to the apes. I mean, it was just everywhere. It was all over the place, and I would have loved to see more of the mutants a little bit too. I would have loved for that.
I think.
You know what also really puzzles me? That they've maintained this atomic bomb for so long.
For 2,000 years, and it's still all polished.
It's still all polished and neat, and they found a way to detonate it. Like, they've obviously studied it, and they've obviously had records of histories of how this was developed.
Yeah.
So they obviously know how to do it. Or maybe they just built it from scratch. It's very possible.
Perhaps so.
It's very interesting. Very interesting concept. I mean, I liked the mutants. I thought the mutants was great. It was kind of the first time you kind of watch this movie, you're kind of shocked to see them, what they really are.
Yeah. In a way, it does go very close to like the Godzilla movies, which were being made at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
They've almost always had like a weird race of human, either like people the size of ants or something, some kind of weird human race.
Yeah.
So it kind of feels like that a little. Maybe that's why people are like, it's too goofy, but I don't know. Overall, while there are some awkward things with the new characters and everything, I salute this movie for being so fucking brave to not only try new things, get new concepts, new characters, but to end on like an even darker note than the previous one did.
I was a bang,
right? Disgusting. Overall, I just think with what they had to work with, they came out with a really fascinating sequel to the original.
They certainly got the shock and surprise that they wanted. And, I still like this movie. I think it's a great sequel. Like I said, I think it should have ended here. I do have a little bit of a soft spot for the third movie. I don't think the third movie is very necessary. It's just the third movie ends on a dark note too. So
it's been way too long since I've seen it.
So Zero and Cornelius go back to 1970 while they got into a rocket ship,
right? And
they traveled back to 1970. And my question is, why couldn't they just get Taylor on the rocket ship and just get him back there if that's the case?
Yep, you got me there.
So
I remember because way back in the day, these used to get played on AMC.
Oh, back when AMC actually played good movies?
Yeah, we'll talk about that later, I'm sure.
Yeah, AMC, I hope you're hearing this because you play shitty, awful movies. It's not... I'm sorry, but Bad Boys is not a classic.
Yeah, well, and Breaking Bad is not a movie.
Day. Yeah.
But like I said, we'll do a whole episode about that. They used to play them like in order, and I remember, of course, loved the first one. Shocked at how much I liked the second one. And then when they get to the third, it's where they lost me. I was just like, why? We're continuing. They blew up the Earth. You don't continue after that.
The only way to do it is go back in time.
Go back in time.
This is the only way possible.
I think it's like you've got to learn your lesson. Without Charlton Heston, it's not Planet of the Apes.
Well, it certainly made them a lot of money. I think it must have took off to the point where we can make more money out of the toys and the merchandise and the movies and it's that guy with the cigar again just saying we're gonna make more money, more third, fourth. Okay, let's stop the fifth one.
Well, as we know, they made 4 sequels to it, and each one, I guess, was even a bigger success than the other. I remember reading a review of the whole series, and then people in the comments were saying, I can remember in the 70s I had an Apes lunchbox and Apes, roller skates, and like, what the fuck, really? But I guess, before Star Wars, this was it. This was the series where they... And took off and sold, and it was all about merch.
Before before Star Wars and Indiana Jones, this was it. This was the franchise that kind of maybe paved the way into other producers saying we can make a lot of money making sequels.
Yeah,
just sequel after sequel. They made 5 movies, and then after the 70s, it wasn't touched until 2001. So there was a 20+ year gap of just nothing.
Yeah, it does very abruptly just stop happening.
It just stops, it just ends right there, and that's it. And it's kind of crazy to think about. This movie franchise, they even had a cartoon for it. They had the merchandise. Yeah,
I think there was a TV spin-off.
There was a TV spin-off. There was a comic book. I mean, it just blew up. It was probably the first of its kind.
Yeah, what's fascinating is that people really latched onto the idea of the apes in modern times as opposed to the humans in the future, which is backwards for me because as soon as they're back in time,
that's
kind of lose me.
Yeah, that's where I kind of just tune out too. I mean, that's where it kind of just stops for me. But it's weird. The polar opposite happens.
The audience loved it, so God bless them.
The audience loved Apes being in our modern times, so it's very interesting.
Even that was a pretty creative decision. I mean, I can't knock it completely. It's just
I can't knock that. Like I said, the third one, I do have a soft spot for it because it's an interesting point of view, and you kind of see how the apes get started, and then one thing leads to another, and you kind of see the apes going into war against humans, and then we know what kind of happens. Years and years and years and years pass later to the point where history is kind of erased from there. So it's it's just this franchise. I mean, can you name any other franchise before this where it had a successful run of sequels where it really just took off? This might be the first.
As far as movies, The only thing that's similar is like when people would watch like Roy Rogers or the Lone Ranger or whatever, and they would buy the merchandise for that.
Yeah.
So that's I don't know, Godzilla or
yeah. I mean,
maybe
Godzilla was probably the start of it. Zorro maybe, but for the most part, Planet of the Apes really kind of brought it into modern day mainstream. And then Star Wars came along, Indiana Jones, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Back to the Future, and then it just Harry Potter, and then that was it.
Yeah, this is the turning point.
So we have Planet of the Apes to blame for all this shit now.
Maybe so. I think this is where it turns into some weirdly becomes like a global industry of movie tie-ins, whereas it was kind of a novelty before that.
Overall, what do you think out of 5? What do you think of this movie?
Man, out of 5, I really like it. I want to give it a 4. I guess I'm going to give it a 3. Because it does have its flaws. It's not the perfect sequel.
I agree. 3. 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5. It's a movie that I'll watch again, and I would say it's slightly above average. But for the most part, yeah, it's it really does have its flaws, and it shows at times. But it's a quick movie, entertains you. If you loved the first movie, if you love the dark undertones of the first movie, then you'll love this movie.
That's you can't afford to not watch Beneath the Planet of the Apes if you love the original.
Yeah,
it's a great follow.
Yeah, out of any sequel or the remakes, if you're gonna choose one, and Beneath the Planet of the Apes is the one. And I think it kind of gets crapped on a little bit more than what it should. I think it did its job. I think this movie pretty much made or break this franchise. Really, kind of opened the door. Well, this was kind of the make or break moment.
It was. And what's interesting is that even though a lot of the audience and critics didn't like it, they still tuned in for part 3, 4, 5, and the TV show and the cartoon and the lunchboxes and every other thing. So, it just goes to show.
Yeah.
Apes are awesome.
They're awesome. I guess maybe the lawgiver wrote that in there too. They made a shit ton of money.
He probably did. It filled his coffers.
This movie is just, I enjoy it. I like it. It's okay in my book.
I think it's a competent sequel to the original.
Yeah.
Considering the expectation that comes with trying to do a sequel to such a classic movie. And I want to mention that you don't get movie stars like Charlton Heston anymore, which I think is a shame. Watching him in anything, I'm like, God, you're so fucking awesome. I don't know what it is. He just had that face like it was made out of granite.
Yeah,
like he belongs on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, you're right.
It's just that guy was a.
Him and Kirk Douglas both.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ, they were men's men back then.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about I could basically watch him in a cereal commercial. That guy was just, I don't know.
He was on Space Coast to Coast that one time.
Oh, God, yes! You don't floss, do you, Chuck?
Well, guess that wraps it up for today.
That really does.
Final thoughts, Russell?
If you didn't realize they made sequels to Planet of the Apes, do yourself a favor, because it's a lot of fun.
Go watch it, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, and don't watch any more after that.
Correct.
Well,
shall we tease what we might have coming up?
Well, we got a list of quite a few candidates here, but I have a feeling we're gonna have an appearance by Vanilla Ice, some pizza, and Kevin Nash.
Stay tuned. Potential to be okay.